energy virtue is the no. If you're operating from feminine energy and the no-go virtue, you're content to observe the world and let it unfold. You relax and kick back. If you're operating from masculine energy, you're action-oriented. You want everything to happen yesterday. In this variable, feminine energy people, wherever they are, they feel like they are where they are meant to be. They view the complexity of a situation and see it in shades of gray. And they're great observers of people. If you're operating from masculine energy in this variable, you like to learn as you go. Let's kick into action and figure it out as we go along. You like to see immediate change, and you see things in black and white. You like to focus and follow one course, and you derive all your knowledge from participation. I consider the difference between no, which is feminine energy, and go, which is masculine energy, to be like the difference between a meditative walk and a vigorous mountain climb. If you're going on a meditative walk, you feel the grass beneath your feet. You take a deep breath. You look at the sky. You may not even have a route that you're following. You're simply walking. And you certainly don't have a time frame. You're there experiencing. You're letting it unfold. If you're taking a vigorous mountain climb, you know where you're going. You're always looking ahead to what's coming next. And you're grabbing one rock and then the next to try to find the shortest distance to get to the top. It's all about wanting those results yesterday. In the no-go variable, when feminine energy is too much in its no, it becomes stagnant and repetitive. It doesn't go anywhere. It can be like a body of water that ends up being a slough. It becomes green and stagnant. In the go of masculine energy, when it falls into its vice, it's like that young river. It's spilling over its banks and destroying everything as it goes. It's in such a hurry. Variable, if you're using gender physics, you're taking time to rest and relax at the same time as you're getting things done. I liken this to a bow and arrow. When an archer pulls back the bow as far as they can let it go then, but if they take the time to pause, they can then pull it back further. And when they pull it back further, the arrow is going to go further and with more force. So it's more effective. They're using gender physics. They're using both. Of course, in the no-go variable, there are 5 virtues or strengths for both masculine and feminine energy, and they're all of a similar nature. So for example, if you are feminine energy in the no variable, you'll take time to reflect on things before you actually make a decision. And when you do, you'll take action. You know, Warren Buffett, one of the most famous investors, spends 80% of his time reflecting before he actually pulls the trigger and makes an investment, before he takes action. If you're in feminine energy, you're going to take time to dream before you actually achieve. If you just jump into achievement, you don't know what it is you're actually dreaming about or what it is you want to achieve. That dream can be the basis of your success. We saw this with Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. He dreamt about it before he actually went to the lab to invent it. Going to the lab to invent it was masculine energy, but he had to have the feminine energy dream to get there. And he combined them both and gave us a wonderful invention. He had an achievement. We have being feminine energy and doing masculine energy. Too many of us don't spend enough time with being energy. Instead of that, we spend too much time with doing energy, and we can wear ourselves out. Feminine energy responds, while masculine energy advances. And feminine energy is all about the nuance, while masculine energy is about simplification. You see this in a general's control room map. The general says, tomorrow we're going to go from A to B to C to D. That's the simplification. That's masculine energy. But feminine energy steps in and says, you need to know that between A and B there's a forest, and between B and C there's a swamp. One gives context to the other. If you're feminine energy in the no-go variable, you can easily spend too much time and become stagnant if you fall into your vices. So for example, if you spend too much time on reflection, you can end up falling into the vice of perfectionism. Perfectionism is really a vice masquerading as a virtue, and it comes from fear. Fear that we're not enough, not good enough, won't be enough unless we do it perfectly. And that means that we spend too much time reflecting and we don't get things done. If you spend too much time dreaming, you can fall into fool's paradise. Nothing is realistic and nothing ever happens. If you spend too much time in being, you become disengaged. And if you spend too much time responding, it's paralyzing. And if you spend too much time in nuance, everything becomes irrelevant. If you become disengaged, you enter your own little world. And if you're too much in fool's paradise, people just want to shake you and wake you up and bring you back to reality, because nothing is ever going to happen. And if you spend too much time in nuance, everything becomes irrelevant. Remember that general with the control room map? Well, somebody, too much in the vice of their feminine energy, they're going to spend a whole bunch of time explaining to the group how to get there over water when the entire journey is going to be over land. If you're in masculine energy in the no-go variable, and you dial it up to the extreme and fall into your vices, you're in danger of doing everything in haste. For example, if you're prone to action, you end up becoming reckless, and you have no idea or concern for the consequences of your action. You just want action for the sake of action. If you focus too much on achievement, you become overly ambitious. And that means none of your accomplishments have any meaning. You just keep moving on to something new. You want another achievement after that one. You never sit back and actually enjoy the fruits of your labor. If you're too much in your doing, you become compulsive. And I know all about this because I was a compulsive workaholic, and I made myself sick with all the doing. I had to introduce some meditation in my life to actually increase some being and find some balance. If you just keep advancing, you overreach, and everything, all of your accomplishments come tumbling down. And if you oversimplify things, they become distorted like a funhouse mirror. At one point in my career, I went to Columbia Business School, where they had students from all over the world. And they had us do a team exercise that was kind of like a survival exercise. They divided us into two groups, and in my group there were 12 people. Half of us were men and half of us were women. And they blindfolded us and they stood us in a field, and we were all holding hands. And they said, listen carefully while the instructor reads the directions. And the instructor said, at your feet are 2 lengths of rope. I want you to take the long piece of rope and make it into a square, and take the short piece of rope and make it into a triangle. And there's only 2 rules. The first, once you touch the rope, you can't let go. And the second, You have 20 minutes. As soon as she said go, those people with masculine energy in our group, they wanted to spring into action. They all wanted to bend over and pick up the ropes. The people in this variable that were feminine energy, they hung on tightly and said, hold it, hold it, hold it. We need to reflect on this for a moment. We need to make a plan. And I said, I used to measure fabric from when I used to sew. So I can pick up the ropes and I can measure them and decide which one is longest and which one is shortest. And then someone said, then you can take the longest piece of rope and divide it into 4 and put knots on the corners. And you can hand those corners. Susie said, I'll take a corner. Fred said, I'll take a corner. Well, we went on like that, planning for 17 of our 20 minutes. And frankly, if it had been up to the feminine energy people in that group, we'd still be there planning. We wanted the perfect plan. We were in danger of falling into perfectionism. Fortunately, we had some action-oriented, masculine energy people in our group. And they said, come on, we got to get going, or all these good plans will be for naught because we'll miss our 20-minute deadline. So with that, we all bent over, we all picked up the ropes, we executed our plans, pulled off our blindfolds, and were excited to see a perfect square with a perfect triangle inside of it. We were thrilled. All of our classmates from all those other countries of the world, they cheered, and we slapped each other on the back and said, aren't we great? And then we went off to watch an all-male group do exactly the same thing. Now, you remember what happens when you have men together. They're more likely to move towards their gender pull. There might have been some feminine energy men in that group, but in that group with other men, 70% of whom would have been masculine energy, it's quite natural that they would fall into their gender pull and be masculine energy as well. Well, as soon as the professor blew the whistle, they all bent over, they all picked up the ropes, and then they didn't have a plan, they hadn't reflected, they didn't know what to do with the ropes. So they said, well, I guess we have to decide which one's longer, which one's shorter, so we'll start walking and see. And they said, well, we can't see because we're wearing blindfolds. Well, we'll see which one sounds the furthest away. So these guys were walking and stumbling into rabbit holes and uneven ground, and finally they said, who sounds further? Tom? No, I think Jim. No, I think Tom. And then they didn't know how to get back to decide what to do with the ropes to make them into a square and a triangle. And as you can imagine, they gave up before their 20 minutes was even up. We had a lot of fun with those guys. We teased them a lot and said, you needed a woman in that group. You needed some diversity. One of those guys was with General Motors. And we said, no wonder your company's in so much trouble. You didn't ever start to make a plan or do any reflection before you started building a car. You see, our group had a successful result because we used the no reflection energy and balanced it with the go masculine energy. We used both. Now I'd like you to add your scores on questions 26 to 30 inclusively on the Go-To Energy Evaluation. If your score was higher on part 1, you operate from feminine energy no in this variable. If your score was higher on part 2, you operate with masculine energy go in this variable. Now I'd like to spend a little time helping each and every one of you develop your opposite or complementary energy. If your score was higher on the first part of the Go-To Energy Evaluation and you operate with feminine energy in this variable, I'd like you to develop some of your go. And that means that you need to start taking some small calculated risks. It doesn't have to be a big risk, something small so that you can have a success and build on that. If you operate from feminine energy, you're probably prone to self-criticism and perfectionism. You know, I had a mistake on that spreadsheet, therefore I'm a bad person. It's better to try meditating for 5 minutes than to take 5 courses on meditation. Rather than continuing to prepare yourself and try to be perfect at it, you need to start taking some action so that you can learn as you go. One of the things to encourage yourself to take a risk is to find something that you feel passionate about, because that will motivate you to take action. Confidence comes from taking action, and confidence is masculine energy. So follow the Nike slogan and just do it. If you're operating from masculine energy in the no-go variable, you're probably all work and no play. You like to be productive all the time, and you're probably always doing something. And you need to work on being spontaneous. Those people who operate from feminine energy, they let things unfold. And they really use their senses. So they don't just hear something, they really listen. They listen for the chirping of the birds, the rustling of the trees. They don't just look, they really see things. You can try really seeing things by examining them more closely. Don't take them for granted. Look for the lines, look for the colors. Use your senses. Take time to really savor your food, to feel it on your tongue. Consider the texture when you're chewing it. Make your experiences with your senses last. Take time to pause, to really connect with the world, and allow yourself to do something that wasn't planned. Let it be spontaneous. Thanks for being with me today. I've enjoyed our discussion. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to email me at baheggie, Heggie, @bettyannhagee.com. And I look forward to having you join me in our 4th session as we review some more ideas about how we're going to develop our complementary energies.